Imagine this. You've done everything right. You've been kind, patient, selfless. You've swallowed anger, silenced needs, and stretched yourself thin, all in the name of being a good person. And yet, you feel hollow, invisible, tired of being everything for everyone except yourself. Worse still, the ones who lie, manipulate, and chase what they want without apology. They're not punished, they're thriving. So why does being good feel so bad? Why does kindness leave you depleted? Why does morality, in practice, feel like a slow erosion of your soul? You're admired for your humility, but it feels like disappearance. You're praised for your composure, but inside, you're screaming. You wear the mask of the good one, and no one notices the cost, and yet you keep wearing it. Why? Is it because we were told that goodness means self-sacrifice? That desire is dangerous? That pleasing others is the path to peace? But what if that's the lie? What if being good is no longer about truth, but about obedience, not about virtue, but conformity? Here's the paradox no one dares name. To truly be good, you may have to stop trying. To live with integrity, you might need to upset people. To be whole, you might have to risk being hated. George Orwell once warned, "The greatest threat to freedom isn't violence, it's internalized control. When morality is defined by fear, power, or guilt, it becomes just another tool of manipulation." So ask yourself, what if your pursuit of being good is the very thing keeping you from being free? What if the voice that whispers, "Be nice," is the same one that silences your truth? What if your goodness has become a prison with golden bars and no key? If you've ever felt punished for your honesty, guilty for asserting your needs, or terrified to speak, even when everything inside you is begging to, you are not broken. You're just waking up. Because this isn't about abandoning goodness, it's about reclaiming what it was meant to be. You weren't meant to be small to be worthy. You were meant to be whole. And to become whole, we must walk back through the ruins, through the roots of morality, the psychology of guilt, and the illusion that obedience is the same as virtue. That journey begins now. Next, we reveal the hidden force quietly exhausting the good people of the world, and why it's been stealing your voice all along. At some point early in life, you learn the real game. Approval isn't given for truth, it's earned through obedience. So you adapt. You trade honesty for acceptance, desire for discipline, discomfort for peace. This is where the fracture begins. Psychologists call it introjection, absorbing the values of others without ever questioning them. Carl Jung warned, when we adopt society's definition of good, we lose contact with our soul. You stop being you and become a version of yourself built for applause, polite, agreeable, predictable. But the parts of you that don't fit, your fire, your hunger, your pain, they don't vanish. They sink, they fester. Jung called this the shadow, the hidden self we exile to be accepted. And the more you suppress it, the more power it holds. Not because it's evil, but because it's true. Society teaches morality as behavior. Be quiet, be nice, be useful. But real ethics is something else entirely. It's alignment, it's truth, it's courage. Nietzsche called out this trap. He named it slave morality, a system of guilt, obedience, and self-denial designed to keep you small. It punishes power and praises submission. It convinces you that choosing yourself is dangerous, and so you shrink. You make yourself good by making yourself invisible. Soon, kindness becomes compulsion. Patience becomes performance. Goodness becomes survival. This is the hidden illness. We mistake self-erasure for virtue. We call it maturity when it's really fear. We celebrate passivity and shame authenticity. You see it everywhere. The quiet, agreeable friend who's secretly bitter. The forgiving parent who's quietly drowning. The peacekeeper who hasn't spoken their truth in years. Arthur Schopenhauer believed we're not driven by morality, but by will, a force deep beneath reason. And when we deny that will, it mutates. Repressed desire turns into resentment. Repressed truth into toxicity. The irony? The more you try to be a saint, the more you suffer like a sinner. But in silence, with a smile. That's why the kindest people often carry the heaviest rage, why the quietest suffer the loudest inside, why good often means dying by degrees. We've confused suppression with strength, but suppression isn't strength. It's slow self-destruction, dressed in virtue. And the deeper trap? We think our pain means we're still not good enough. So we double down. More giving, more silence, more pretending. But the pain isn't from a lack of goodness. It's from the war inside you, between who you really are and who you were told to be. Jean-Paul Sartre called it bad faith, the suffering that comes from denying your freedom. When you live as an actor in someone else's script, you stop living. You start performing, and performance always costs something. Maybe you feel it now, the quiet ache, the whisper that says, "This isn't me," the faint rebellion rising in your gut. Because deep down you know, there is power in your discomfort. There is wisdom in your anger. There is truth in the part of you that's had enough. And to reclaim that truth, you must stop paying the price of silence. Because what's buried in your shadow isn't just your rage, it's the parts of you that could set you free. You don't see the fracture at first. It hides behind your smile, behind your "I'm fine," behind the version of you that keeps everyone else comfortable. But it spreads, quietly, relentlessly. One day you say yes while your body screams no. You laugh when you want to cry. You feel numb in moments that should move you. You can't remember the last time you felt real. Your relationships? One-sided. You give endlessly. You listen deeply. You love completely. And still, you feel alone. Why? Because they're not loving you. They're loving your mask. The agreeable, low-maintenance, never-too-much version of you. The one you created to feel worthy. But that mask? It costs everything. Over time, you stop trusting yourself. You doubt your instincts, your feelings, your needs. You ask yourself, am I too sensitive, too emotional, not enough, too much? Eventually, you stop asking. You stop dreaming. You stop showing up as you. This is what happens when your inner world and your outer performance split. Cognitive dissonance doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the body. Chronic stress, shallow sleep, anxiety as default. And still, you keep performing. Because part of you believes, if I stop, I'll lose everything. Love, respect, belonging. But here's the tragic twist. You already lost something. Yourself. And the world? It won't save you. You could sacrifice for years and still be discarded the moment you're no longer convenient. You could contort yourself to perfection and still be misunderstood, still be rejected. Because no performance protects you from the raw chaos of being human. No amount of goodness saves you from pain. Still, most keep trying, because it's deeper than social rules. It's wired into your brain. From infancy, we learn, if I'm good, I'll be loved. If I'm not, I'll be left behind. That belief never really leaves. It just evolves. We seek love from bosses, from partners, from strangers online. So we filter ourselves, polish our image, cut out the messy parts, our boundaries, our opinions, our truth. And with every edit, we pay a price. Less authenticity, less intimacy, less joy. Because here's the secret no one tells you. Authenticity and approval rarely coexist. And the life you want? It can only be built in the rubble of the one you faked. But this isn't just personal. It's cultural. When a society rewards silence over truth, what you get is shallow connection and quiet resentment. No one says what they mean. Everyone walks on eggshells. And under the surface, rage simmers. It shows up as burnout, depression, chronic illness, exploding relationships, sudden identity collapses. This is the slow violence of self-betrayal. And the cruelest irony? The more invisible your suffering becomes, the more people applaud you. You're so strong. You're so calm. You're such a good person. They mean well, but inside, something dies. Because you don't want to be strong anymore. You want to be real. But being real is dangerous. It threatens the fragile systems built on your compliance. So society gaslights you. Your discomfort is selfish, your boundaries are rude, your anger is wrong. But is it? Or is your anger a guardian? A signal? A final line of defense protecting something sacred? Your truth, your freedom, yourself. Aldous Huxley once warned, we wouldn't be enslaved by terror, but by comfort. And isn't that what being good often offers? Comfort, predictability, approval? But comfort without truth? That's a cage. A beautiful one, padded with praise, and locked from the inside. You won't scream? That would make things messy. So you whisper, to yourself, to no one, until even the whisper fades, and that right there is where the rebellion must begin. Because if you don't reclaim your truth, someone else will use it against you. Next, the rebellion. The path back to yourself doesn't begin with rage. It begins with a quiet, terrifying realization. You were never meant to be good. You were meant to be whole. Rebellion doesn't always look like fire. Sometimes it looks like silence, the kind of silence that comes after finally saying no. When you've spent a lifetime saying yes. It's letting someone down and not rushing to apologize. It's choosing yourself, even when it makes others uncomfortable. This isn't the kind of self-care sold on Instagram. It's not candles and bubble baths. It's choosing discomfort over approval, truth over image, wholeness over performance. Because breaking free isn't about becoming bad, it's about becoming real. That's the difference between rebellion and reaction. Reaction is raw emotion. Rebellion is clarity in motion. It says, I know who I am. I know what matters. And I won't betray that anymore, no matter the cost. But it's not easy. It never has been. Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Most avoid it, because awakening means loss. Loss of comfort, loss of certainty, loss of identity. But what you gain in return is your life. Viktor Frankl survived the unimaginable and still found this truth. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Not into what's acceptable, but into someone aligned with meaning. Not morality, not applause, but meaning. And here's where the script flips. You don't find power by being seen as good. You find it by standing in integrity, even when it costs you being liked. Sometimes that means being misunderstood, judged, labeled. But what if that's the cost of freedom? What if being disliked is the toll at the bridge back to your soul? Real freedom isn't about escaping consequences. It's about choosing the ones that align with your truth. Let them misunderstand. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them say you've changed. You have. The rebellion doesn't begin with fire. It begins with quiet, radical choices. The first time you hold your ground. The first time you stop apologizing for taking up space. The first time you say what's real without dressing it up to make it easier to swallow. This is courage. Not loud, performative courage, but the kind that rebuilds your nervous system. The kind that says, I'm not here to be small anymore. And yes, it takes time. You've spent years surviving through approval. You won't unlearn that overnight. So start small. Start now. Speak your truth where you once stayed silent. Set a boundary where you once folded. Say no with no excuse. Say yes to what scares you, because it's yours. And when the discomfort comes, and it will, don't run. Breathe through it, because that feeling, that's not weakness. That's rebirth. You're building a life that isn't fueled by validation, but by alignment. A life where your worth isn't borrowed from others, where your value isn't defined by how little you need, where you finally get to say, I am not here to be palatable, I am here to be true. This is the return to self, not through perfection, but through raw honesty, embodiment, radical responsibility. Yes, you'll lose people, but only the ones who needed you to stay small. And in their place, you'll find something better. People who meet your truth with their own, who don't flinch at your shadow, because they've made peace with theirs. This is how the world changes, not through mass awakening, but through individuals choosing truth over comfort, integrity over image. And once you taste it, once you feel what it's like to breathe in your own skin, you'll never go back. So here you are, on the edge, the false self behind you, the real self waiting. All that's left is the leap, but before you jump, there's one final truth waiting beneath it all, the insight that changes everything, that reframes the pain, the rebellion, the entire human condition. Next, the ultimate truth, the realization you'll never forget, because once you see it, you can never unsee it. What if you've spent your life trying to be good, in a world that never really knew what goodness was? What if the virtue you've chased was built on fear, on obedience, on control disguised as morality? Here's the truth most never reach, not because it's hidden, but because it's terrifying. There is no universal good, no final judge, no perfect standard. What we call good is often just what makes us comfortable. What we call bad is often what dares to break the illusion. You were born into a script. It told you who to be, what to value, how to earn love, how to belong. But that script, it was never written for your freedom. It was written to tame you, to reduce your wildness into something manageable. And so the most liberating truth is also the most disorienting. There is no authority but your own, no final word but the one you choose to live by. That freedom, it's raw, it's messy, and it's yours. Because if there is no absolute rule book, you get to write your own, not out of rebellion, not out of spite, but out of alignment. Alignment with what? Your inner truth, the voice beneath performance, beneath guilt, beneath fear. Søren Kierkegaard called it subjective truth, the kind that can't be measured, only lived, not handed down from above, but drawn up from within. And when you embrace that, everything shifts. You stop trying to be good. You start trying to be whole. You don't perform values. You embody them. You don't memorize truth. You speak it. And that kind of life? It's not clean. It's not convenient. It won't earn you gold stars or flawless praise. But it is real. And in that reality, you recover something sacred. Self-respect. Not the kind given to you. The kind you give yourself. The kind that stays because it was never borrowed. This is where healing begins. Not when you reach perfection, but when you stop believing you need to. Because you were never meant to be judged. Not by society, not by a system, not by the survival version of yourself. You weren't broken. You were fragmented, split between the truth within you and the lie you were told to wear. But those pieces, they've always been yours, and they're ready to return. This is the work of integration, the journey back to yourself. This is what Jung meant when he said, "I'd rather be whole than good." To integrate is to reclaim your voice, to embrace your contradictions, to walk through the fire of self-awareness and come out alive. This path won't promise safety or ease or applause, but it will give you your life back. And in a world of masks, being authentic is the most radical act. So now you know. You were never meant to fit. You were meant to grow, to question, to fall, to rise, to become. And in becoming, you do more than free yourself. You become a mirror, an invitation. The world doesn't need more good people. It needs more true people. People who have faced their own darkness and no longer trade truth for approval. So here it is, your invitation, not to change, but to return to who you were before the world told you who to be. Because the final truth is this: you were always enough, not when you became polite, not when you became perfect, but when you became you. So don't let them tame you. Don't let them mold you. Don't let them shame the truth out of your mouth. You already know who you are. You always have. And now, you get to live it.